sports show on YouTube. That's right. We're here bringing you and breaking down everything going on in the NBA right now. We're breaking down all of the NFL news. We're also going to be talking about the 25 biggest movie budgets, and then we're going to be putting that in context here. But first, we have to go over what is a one of one performance from the one and only Haliban himself, Tyrese Haliburton. The Haliban is here, and he's the first player to have 30 points, 15 assists, 10 rebounds, 5 made three-pointers, and no turnovers. 15 assists in an Eastern Conference Championship game where a team has their back up against the wall, needs to do every single thing in their power to beat you, and this guy doesn't turn the ball over. He has 15 assists, makes over 5 threes, and as a point guard has 10 rebounds and over 30 points. And this is the most overrated player in the league. Like, honestly, at this point, Tyrese Haliburton might be the best player in the league since LeBron James at just playing basketball. Like, straight up, that's what Tyrese Haliburton does. What is his skill? Just playing basketball and playing basketball the right way and allowing his head coach to coach, because he clearly takes the criticism from Rick Carlisle. He's a hard-nosed coach and he's earned his trust. And then this is a team that the talent disparity doesn't feel like it's that much different from the New York Knicks. But what's the real difference? The head coach, one of them grinds his players all the way into the ground. Then their star player on one team knows how to play the game the most efficient way possible to maximize his teammates. And the other one is a prolific scorer, but kind of can take the air out of the ball sometimes. So we kind of had a close to the Knicks and Pacers series with a, what are your thoughts? I guess just a historic performance from Halliburton, something we've never seen before in the NBA.
Yeah, Halliburton was unconscious in that game. Stat line 32, 12, and 15, 4 assists, 5 made three-pointers, 0 turnovers. Absolutely insane. And then that's also attributed to Pascal Siakam. Credit to him, 30 points, 1 turnover. Both of these guys have been unconscious this series. Siakam had a big game in game two as well. When you look at the Knicks and Pacers teams and how they've been constructed, you have one team, right? The Knicks, they went out, they got Jalen Brunson. They made some big moves. They made a huge trade for Mikal Bridges. Hasn't truly panned out. They traded for Anunoby. They traded for Karl Anthony Towns, really acquiring them by trading away their depth to acquire large scale superstars, or stars in this case, where the Pacers, much more methodical. They made a smart trade for Pascal Siakam, didn't give up too much. Halliburton, they end up switching Sabonis, who was on a last year of his deal. They switch him to the Kings. They get Halliburton. And what they've been focused on mainly is depth. You have Nimhard, who has been excellent in this series, went unconscious in game three. And then we have players like Miles Turner, who's been there for a long time, a vet. Kind of reminds me of how the Nuggets kind of acquired their team for that championship run, focusing on depth rather than making their team top heavy. So ultimately, you've seen how that's played out ultimately. We've seen Rick Carlisle, who's had a coaching masterpiece, and then Halliburton, a guy that had the criticisms, is he overrated? Not quite the same scorer as some of these other point guards in the league. Jalen Brunson consistently putting up 30 points. But when he needs to, when it's time to steal the momentum from that other team, not only has he been the most clutch shooter, arguably all time in this playoff run, but also making the right play when it matters. So I've been really impressed with this Pacers team. And I do think as we preview the NBA Finals this upcoming week, we're going to be talking about ultimately, can the Pacers beat the Thunder, which I honestly think that it is attainable for them with how they've been playing.
Yeah, and honestly, I felt like we both thought if the Celtics aren't going to make the finals this year, I said coming into it, you can go back and check, but we both said it's probably going to be the Pacers, especially with how they're built. And it's interesting that you mentioned, they traded DeMontis Sabonis. Like, well, why does that matter? Well, the Kings and the Pacers had the same problem. They had two guys who did similar things. You had two ball dominant point guards who need the ball, like Tyrese Haliburton and De'Aaron Fox. They're better when they're separate from each other. You don't need two point guards to that caliber on the same team, and they're both very good players. But then you go over, and then the Pacers had Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner, and it was really a debate of, well, should we trade Miles Turner because he's the lesser player? When the Pacers were like, no, let's actually build a team that fits together and makes sense. Because Miles Turner is someone who's a stretch five, can play defense and have an impact when he's guarding someone like Karl Anthony Towns. And he can go on an absolute run where he's unconscious. And they're like, you know what? Why don't we trade Malcolm Brogdon for Aaron Naismith? Interesting.
Worked out.
So you get him, and then he hits not one, not two, not three, not four, but six threes in a fourth quarter. And you gave up Malcolm Brogdon, ends up winning six man of the year. Doesn't matter. You made the right move, the smart basketball decision. And then Nemhard comes out of nowhere, and he looks like the return of Courtney Lee or something. He's coming out here. He's a great 3-and-D player. And then you just watch him dribble the ball seemingly all the way back out to half court and then run at the rim. Like Nemhard is one of those players who could slowly turn into someone. I'm not saying he is Bradley Beal, but he has the potential to become as good as someone like Bradley Beal, or at least a really solid 18 to 20 point scorer consistently in this league. And we know he can get hot. And then you have Matherin come off the bench, who averaged 16 points a game for you this year. And then he comes in, has a really solid 18 points. And then you're just looking at the Knicks, and the Knicks turned into Chris Paul in game 4. What they did was, oh no, the series is over. And then suddenly all of their hamstrings fell off.
Yeah, exactly. The Pacers team, I look at them. First of all, I want to talk about the Aaron Nesmith game because this is what game 2 is going to be defined as. It felt like when I was watching that game that the Pacers just turned their 3-point sliders up in 2K all the way up to 100. This guy made 6 consecutive threes over the course of 3 minutes. This lead went from, I believe, 15 points all the way down to a tie game, goes into overtime, and then just continues to hoop. Aaron Naismith, by the way, is probably what, their 5th option on the team potentially. And he went out, had 30 points, made 6 consecutive threes, 18 points in 4 minutes, I believe, is the most points in that stretch of time in playoff history. So he's made playoff history at this point. And ultimately, like we alluded to with the Pacers earlier, it's the way they constructed their team with, we have, you know, Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis. Let's get value with Sabonis. I actually have the trade up here, what it turned into and who they ultimately gave up for it. Um, and then ultimately keeping Miles Turner, a guy that's been on their team for a long time, knows the culture, has worked with Rick Carlisle, keeping him for that defensive presence and moving on from Sabonis. Looking at that trade now, they get Haliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson, who played there for an hour. And they give up Sabonis, Justin Holiday, Jeremy Lamb, and a second-round pick that was ultimately dealt eventually. So ultimately, I think also getting Haliburton and Buddy Hield, who they ended up switching around again when they traded him inevitably again, um, obviously a home run pick for the Pacers. And credits to their front office as well.
Yeah, and especially like you went out there and you bring in a coach like Rick Carlisle, and then if Halliburton goes out there with Rick Carlisle and wins a ring, what does that say about Luca at a point? Like, I hate to be the guy who's like, oh, you know, just pile on Luca for no reason. But like when you look at someone like Halliburton, like is Luka Doncic a better scorer and is he a more prolific scorer than Halliburton? Yes, but I feel like Halliburton's style of play, he empowers players to a different level, even though Luka has taken some lesser teams to the NBA Finals. But if Halliburton gets this team to the NBA Finals, I mean, Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam, they're all really good, but generally not a 2 on a championship team, especially going up against a team with Karl Anthony Towns, who a lot of people coming into this year would rather have than Tyrese Haliburton. And then you have Jalen Brunson, who people still, for some reason, think is better than Tyrese Haliburton, which blows my mind because is Brunson maybe a better all around skillful player on offense? I guess, but Halliburton's just better at running an offense, and he also plays defense. It's like people forget that passing, getting your teammates involved is the most important thing, but he also knows when to score, and he's clutch. He's hit how many big shots down the stretch anytime his team needs a bucket, he goes out there and gets it. So it's like for me, like Halliburton might be one of those players where if he goes into the finals, he may have the most to gain out of any player from winning an NBA championship because SGA got his MVP, but just the fact that he's even getting to the finals with this Pacers team, when no one except for maybe us had that on their bingo card, or Pat McAfee, who's in Indiana. Like, I'm like, outside of Boston, like, I think the Pacers were the best team last year, and they showed the most experience, and they gave me the most reason to think why they get back there. So I feel like with the Pacers, like, I feel like this team still is overachieving, and I feel like the NBA has a huge marketing issue, because all we heard about coming into the playoffs was like Anthony Edwards is going to be the face of the league. The Lakers, the Celtics, they were talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers with one of the best seasons ever. All we heard about was the Knicks. No one even talked about the Pacers coming into the year. And then the Thunder, people like, it kind of seemed too easy for them, which we also fell into the trap too. But it was just banging on the drum of Anthony Edwards, who really didn't face that many tough teams. He faced the Warriors without Steph Curry. And then they were talking about Luka and LeBron trying to convince people that they could go to the finals. Like, this is a really good finals matchup. And I feel like, as far as the competition, the conference championship this year with the Knicks and Pacers was a lot more entertaining. And I feel like the finals, the Pacers versus the Thunder, is going to be a lot more competitive than Boston versus Dallas was. Like, that was a blowout series.
Yeah, I agree. So like it's you're talking about like the narratives that the media went into in entering the playoffs, right? Knicks, obviously I think the Knicks were going to be in contention. They had a team that they had constructed that should have been competitive, and I think their roster is better than the Pacers on paper. But looking at the Timberwolves, right, with Anthony Edwards, right, faces the Lakers, who they anointed as a team that could potentially make the finals, even though everybody else who knows basketball would know, okay, Luke is great, LeBron is great. Who else do they have on that team, right? Because they have Austin Reeves and then ultimately no big man that could stop anybody. They go into there. And then they face the Warriors. Steph Curry gets hurt. That doesn't help. And then now they're in the Thunder series where they're about to get blown out pretty considerably in game 5. Anthony Edwards has 19 points. He's shooting 30% from the field. And honestly, the MVP for the Timberwolves this postseason, which was not on my bingo card, has been Julius Randle. Like Julius Randle, if there's anybody on the Timberwolves that deserves some respect, who I've disrespected in the past, for good reason, he was the worst playoff shooter of all time before this playoff series. He's been the MVP for the Timberwolves. He's been the one that's been good on defense. He's the one that's getting rebounds. He's the one that's been their scorer ultimately. He has been getting his respect. Anthony Edwards hasn't really played up to his abilities. He's young. Give him some time. Maybe he does ultimately break through eventually. But the narrative has always been around these big market teams who we all had our questions with. Celtics, maybe injuries were what played a part, but all these other teams, we all knew, for those who watch basketball, all knew these guys were not going to do anything in the playoffs or not make it ultimately to the finals inevitably.
Yeah. And I feel like you say, like, the biggest and the most impactful and the MVP for Minnesota was Julius Randle. Like, for me, if I'm a Timberwolves fan, that's a problem. That's like saying Marcus Smart is the MVP for the Celtics in the playoffs. Like, I get Julius Randle's better offensively, but it's the same concept. Like, it's something you don't want to happen, especially when you already have Rudy Gobert on your team, and then you have Anthony Edwards. When is this guy going to get the same treatment as Jason Tatum? Because at this age, Jason Tatum was getting ripped apart in the media for losing in the NBA Finals to the Golden State Warriors. At least he was in the NBA Finals, and then he'd gotten to multiple conference championships. He never got beat this badly. You know what he did? He took the Cleveland Cavaliers team with LeBron James 7 games as a rookie, and then he
And
got to
dunked
the
on LeBron.
finals at the same age, and he dunked on LeBron. And then suddenly Anthony Edwards is supposed to be the face of the league. Like, this narrative to me is so weird, and that one just felt like so artificial. Like, it never felt like it had any traction at all. And I get he's on an inferior team with Minnesota. I get Michael Jordan struggled at the beginning of his year, but this guy is not Michael Jordan. The fact that this guy had 16 points and they asked him, "Do you think you had a bad game or struggle?" And then he said, "No, I was making the right basketball play," when he had how many turnovers in that game? And he only
7.
got 16 points. Yeah, you have 7 turnovers. Like, I don't think I struggled. I was just making the right play. Like, no, that's not the best player in the league. If that was Kobe Bryant, he'd be fuming. at himself. If that was Michael Jordan, he'd be fuming at himself. Like Anthony Edwards isn't the face of the league. Like I get people don't like Jason Tatum, and he doesn't have to be the face of the league. Like it's at least Jokic at this point. I don't mind Shea Gilgeous-Alexander being the face of the league, or Tyrese Haliburton if he goes out there and wins the finals. Like that would be iconic. You go out there with an Indiana Pacers team like this in a small market, um, and take that team to the finals and win. Like either of these guys are more deserving. And it's only because he's not a foreign player is the reason why they try and push him as the face of the league. It's because Wemby's from France. It's because Luka's not from the US. And I feel like that kind of is the reason behind it. It's like Steph Curry was the face of the league, LeBron was, Kobe was, where Tim Duncan never really got a fair shot at it.
Yeah, Tim Duncan was always disrespected. I think with Anthony Edwards, like he has the personality of the face of the league, but I also think that in order to be the face of the league, you have to win. You have to break through to that other side, which is why we can put Tatum in that conversation for player of the league ultimately because he's won a title. And ultimately, I think SGA, if he inevitably wins that title in a few weeks, then he deserves to be in that conversation as well. But it can't just all be personality at the end of the day. He has struggled in the playoffs. He's been a poor shooter. He's made a lot of mistakes. And I think the problem is not that they want to put him in that conversation. It's the fact that they're already anointing him as the face of the league when he hasn't proved it yet. And I would compare it similarly, although I think Josh Allen deserves more respect than that. Josh Allen, they did the same thing with him when he was having his MVP run, when he's had these other playoff runs. They want to constantly anoint these other players who haven't had that same pedigree. Instead of anointing someone like a Joe Burrow to go head to head with Mahomes, they're putting Josh Allen because we like Joe Burrow or we like Josh Allen ultimately. And I think that it's lazy. I think it disrespects these other players like the SGAs who's had on a historic season. It disrespects Halliburton, who's had one of the greatest playoff runs. Even if they just make the finals, it is still an iconic playoff run with all those made shots, with all those comebacks. It's disrespecting these other guys who deserve to be in that conversation more. Just because you like this guy, they don't belong in that conversation.
Yeah, and for me, watching this playoff run, like I don't even know if he's gonna be Jimmy Butler all time. Like to be honest, like Jimmy Butler, some of the games he had, like 40-point triple doubles, 50-point games, taking down the Celtics as the 7th seed in the conference championship. Like I feel like people sleep on Jimmy Butler, and rightfully so, just because he's lazy in the regular season. And I get it. Like, for him, it's a day job. I show up, but in the playoffs, like playoff Jimmy is real. So until I see him go on that type of a run, because he has a similar team kind of to those Miami Heat teams where he kind of has someone similar to Bam, like Julius Randle, and then he has a bunch of shooters around him. So eventually, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, it's going to be a long, hard offseason, especially for Anthony Edwards, because if he's someone who wants to be the face of the league or he's someone who wants to eventually win, is this going to be an issue with Chris Finch? And is he going to end up being the scapegoat? Or are we going to finally smarten up, trade Rudy Gobert, and see if we can get a second star paired with him? Because at this point, who could you package a trade for? Maybe Laurie Markkinen, but you're not getting like Devin Booker to pair with him. You're not getting Trey Young.
Yeah, I honestly watching these playoffs, I've never been a huge Rudy Gobert fan. I know what he's done defensively for a long time, but he has easily the softest hands of any big man I've ever seen in my life. And he does not have that same dog that a center should have. When I look at someone, not that I should compare him to Shaq, but someone like a Shaq, or even someone like a Jokic, who's got that size and that build, and someone that can bully somebody down in the paint. Like Rudy Gobert is massive, and he has all the tools to do so. But then he doesn't know how to use his powers. It's like as if somebody who's 5'6" grew to be 7'4" overnight, and suddenly he has to decide for himself how he plays his game. Shouldn't it be that hard, dude? You're 7'3", you're massive, you're ripped. You should be able to bully anybody you want in the paint, but instead, you don't. There's only one
Yeah.
person that should be able to stop him, and that's Wemby. Wemby's nowhere in the playoffs at this point. Why are you not bullying everybody? Because Chet Holmgren is like what, 6'10"? You're 7'3", dude. You should be able to annihilate anybody on the Thunder at this point. Rudy Gobert should. He just doesn't have that same offensive pedigree, and he ends up clogging the paint for someone like Anthony Edwards. It's going to be a net negative with him on the floor.
Yeah, I think Chet is like similar to his height. He might be a little shorter. I think he's definitely over 7 feet, but Chet is like skinny though, and you should be able to just push him out of the way. And you should have that attitude where you're constantly picking up flagrant fouls or pushing him to the floor. Like that's always been my biggest problem with Rudy Gobert and the modern day big man is because uh, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar invented this one move, and he literally solved basketball. The hook shot. The fact that Rudy Gobert just can't get a nice little hook shot, if he hits 4 of those a game, guess what? That's a quick, easy 8 points in this guy. If he could just hit a layup, sometimes he throws the ball at the rim and he's just like this. I don't know if it's the French in him and that's why he's so soft. And I'm French Canadian, and that's why I hate a quarter of myself. But we have Rudy Gobert here, and he just can't push anyone out of the way. Like, dude, get in the gym and just work on hitting a layup. All you have to do is a little baby hook bank shot. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar literally solved the game of basketball, and no big man in the NBA can take it seriously. Like you don't want to get phased out of the NBA. Like all you need is this. It's just a little hook shot because you lean your shoulder into them. And if you're as tall as Rudy Gobert, there's only one player in the league who can block you, and that's Wemby. So as long as you don't play the Spurs, you'll be fine. But like Rudy Gobert should average 18 points just off of offensive rebounds and putbacks.
First of all, yes, I agree with you. Second of all, this was his playoff stat. So the game just went final. So they are officially out of the playoffs now. Rudy Gobert had 2 points, shot one shot, and had 5 rebounds. 5 rebounds. Again, Rudy Gobert, for those who don't know Rudy Gobert, he is 7'1, 260. He looks like he's like 7'3 on the floor, though. He's huge. Meanwhile, like again, Chet Holmgren's 7'1, but he's like 100 pounds, soaking wet. So like Rudy Gobert should have bullied him. The only team that he could ultimately bully in this playoff run was the Lakers. And who do the Lakers have as the center? I'll wait. Dorian Finney-Smith, who's like 6'8 at this point. Obviously, that made sense. But
They played
Timberwolves,
5 players at the end of that series. They were only playing 5 players on that team.
yes. So Rudy Gobert, I think, is the biggest thing for the Timberwolves. Like trade Rudy Gobert. Laurie Markkinen, you shouted out. I think he would be a fine fit there. Maybe if Bam, the Heat are trying to make some sort of changes, maybe you get Bam in there. Bam would be a fine fit there. But ultimately, get Rudy Gobert out of Minnesota. It didn't work out. You made the two conference finals with him, but you're not going to make it to the finals and win with him in there, especially with a player like Anthony Edwards and his style of play. It's just not going to work ultimately. So there's going to be some long conversations this offseason with the T-Wolves.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. And like, are the T Wolves gonna consistently keep getting back to the conference championship? Or I feel like if you get beat this bad this year, it's like you've gotten to the conference championship back to back years now and got blown out. And like a lot of it was luck, to be honest. It was the side of the bracket that you came through because you had Steph Curry was destroying this team in the first game, and then he gets a hamstring injury and comes up limp. And then before that, the Lakers only had 5 NBA players, if that, on their roster. And now, so it's like
Plus,
with
Jimmy
them,
Butler
yeah,
was hurt. Jimmy Butler was
yeah,
hurt in that Warrior series too.
in the Rocket series, yeah, he got hurt in the first round. So,
Yeah, so he was
and he
banged
was
up too.
still
So
giving you problems on one
yeah,
leg.
yeah. So yeah, I think T-Wolves have a lot to solve. The Thunder, though, 68 wins. They blew through the Grizzlies. They blew through. Well, they didn't really blow through the Nuggets, but they had a contested series with the Nuggets, and then they take care of the Timberwolves very easily, and now they're on the path to the finals. Ultimately, with them, credits to them. SGA had a great game, had a great series in general, had some great games with Jalen Williams as well. But to the Thunder, like you and I previewing it, it just felt like it was too obvious to pick them. Kind of made a similar mistake. People made the same mistake with the Celtics last year. Are the
Mhm.
Thunder just that good? Ultimately, are they just that are they an all-time team at this point, especially if they win the finals?
Yeah, it's getting there. It depends on what SGA's contract does next year, right? Because I feel like to be an all-time team, you at least have to win 2 championships together with this team. So if they can keep the team around him, but before I knew Jimmy Butler was going to be on the Warriors, I had picked the Thunder to go to the finals as my after season pick last year and then my preseason pick this year. And I believe we both believed in the Thunder. And it was not only because of Hartenstein and what he would bring to the table, but Caruso. But I wanted to look at Jalen Williams on that team. And if you looked at him last season, he showed a lot of promise. He's a guy who's extremely fast. He has incredible speed. He has incredible IQ and hands on defense. And he's also a really good shooter. So I'm like, if Jalen Williams just takes that next step this year, I feel like the Thunder are definitely going to be in that finals. And that's going to be the difference between them losing to 6 versus Kyrie and Luca and going out there and getting to the NBA finals and competing with either Boston or Indiana at that point last season. And I feel like that is exactly what happened because this year, I feel like the Thunder are a better team because you have the veteran leadership of Caruso, who's hit big shots. He's a really good defender. Hartenstein is also a grit and grind player, but Chet has also gotten better. And then you had a game where you had 3 players. Okay, this isn't 4 players. This isn't their starters got 95 points. You had 3 players get 95 points when there have been games where teams didn't even score 90. And then suddenly you're out there. SGA has 40. Jalen Williams has 34. And then Chet Holmgren has 21. That's why I thought this team was going to get to the finals this year before the season and before I thought Jimmy Butler on the Warriors would put that team over the top. It's Jalen Williams taking that next step forward, and it's also Shea Gilgeous-Alexander just getting better and then understanding that some players take more time to develop, but once they do develop, like a lot of people hate on SGA, but honestly, I just think he's better and than everyone else in the league at this point because the reason why he gets to the free throw line so much is because he drives to the paint more than any NBA player in the league. You know what you're doing every single time you jump up in the air with people underneath you? You're risking your feet getting knocked out from under you, landing on your head, tearing your ACL, popping your shoulder out, breaking your ankle. Like SGA puts his body on the line more than most other players in the league. And I get he has this whole free throw merchant era, then drive to the rim more than he does. Like if you want to get to the foul line, you have to go to the basket. And SGA, while he does flop, so does every single other player. Did you watch Harden, LeBron, and Manu Ginobili growing up? Like it's just part of the NBA at this point. But him getting better and the ascendance of Jalen Williams is something that I knew pretty much every casual NBA fan was going to overlook as far as the Thunder this season and why they're going to be this good. So, do I think they're a 68-win team? Absolutely. I think this team is an absolute machine. And then this is going to be fire and ice going at each other. But usually it's fire and ice. But honestly, I think it's going to be fire and fire because I feel like even though the clock is going to say it's a 12-minute quarter, I feel like these quarters are going to feel like they go by in like 10 minutes just with the pace that both of these teams play. Like both of these teams play at an exceptional high pace and just run you out of the gym. So the fact that we're going to see both of them, two Showtime Lakers, like going back and forth,
Oh, it's going to be
unbelievable.
exceptional. I want to also give some more credit to Alex Caruso because, like, he ultimately, I feel like, was the key to them beating the Nuggets. Because when he was guarding Jokic, he was the only person, honestly, over the last, 5 years that has been able to contain, to some extent, Nikola Jokic. And that's what they did in the second round. Like, when he was guarding Nikola Jokic, his shooting percentage dropped by like 30 points ultimately. So he was ultimately that missing piece. And then obviously we've credited Hartenstein being that big man that can help when there's some guys like, they're going to face Miles Turner next round, when they face the Rudy Goberts of the world this round, and then in previous rounds as well. Credit to the Thunder there. And then obviously SGA has gotten better. So I think this Thunder's team is that good. That, and what we talk about with this next round, it's just going to be, it's going to be going at like 10 times speed, keeping track of these teams because they're so quick. They know how to get points quick, and any lead that they have or any lead or deficit that they have to face can be erased in 5 minutes, if that.
Yeah, and it feels like this Thunder team just has it when you watch them play. When I watched them play the Grizzlies, I was overwhelmed watching that first game. When I watched the Grizzlies step into Oklahoma City, if you've ever played in a basketball game or ever been like a playoff basketball atmosphere, even just in high school. I kind of felt that vibe where sometimes you get a little bit overwhelmed, especially when you go from pickup to playing in a game with people in the stands and the crowd is going crazy, just in a high school gym. But then you're in Oklahoma City, one of the loudest arenas in the league, and everyone's wearing white. Like that makes it like 10 times brighter, and then suddenly you're down 30. I'm like, I'm overwhelmed just watching this game. I can't imagine what's going through the Grizzlies players' minds at this point.
Yeah, the Thunder just overwhelmed the Grizzlies ultimately. So I'm interested to see like how this matchup plays out. We have the game 6 tomorrow, oh, game 5 tomorrow with the Pacers, and this will be, I believe, in Minnesota or in Indiana, ultimately, and they are favorited to win this game. Um, so yeah, ultimately, how this team's going to match up. Knicks are actually favorited in game 4. So this will be at Madison Square Garden. Do you see the Pacers closing it out on Thursday, ultimately?
I do, because I watched the end of the game and I saw Carl Anthony Towns healing over and I saw OG Anunoby get hurt. So I feel like the Knicks are at the point where they know they've lost the series and they're just going to pack it up. Like the Knicks team, for me, watching them feels very Clippers, feels very Houston Rockets. When I watch the Knicks, and every time I've watched the Knicks this season, I've never thought, oh yeah, that team's going to go out there or that team has a shot of winning the NBA finals. I've never felt any, like, I feel like they've been really interesting to watch, but they've never felt like a team that was going to get to the finals. Even though they're in the conference championship, there was never a doubt for me that the Pacers were going to win the series. Even when they were down in game 1, guess what happened? Naismith turned into Tracy McGrady. Then they end up taking that game. So it's like, for me, I feel like this will be a definitely a closeout game, especially since the Thunder closed out. And I feel like that'll be on the Pacers' mind as well. And I feel like Halliburton is just one of those guys who plays better on the road than he does at home. I feel like he's someone who just thrives on sticking it to the other team. Just like him being able to do this at the end of the game. Papa
So cold.
Halliburton is back so he can go out there, get in a fight with Jalen Brunson's dad. I heard they're doing a WWE tag team with Jalen Brunson and Rick Brunson versus Halliburton and his dad this summer. So it's going to be electric.
That's amazing. See, WWE, at least they know their audience and they know that that's going to do well. Yeah, honestly, like the Knicks team it's really fun. Like in 5 years when it's a 2K team, like it's going to be a lot of fun to play with. I have a lot of respect for Jalen Brunson, and I respect the Knicks as far as seeing the talent that Jalen Brunson's been and what he's been able to ascend to as a player. But the rest of the team around him, like, I don't believe in Mikal Bridges. I don't believe in Carl Anthony Towns. And then like Mitchell Robinson, okay, doesn't move the needle for me very much. Josh Hart's been excellent, sure. But the rest of the team, like I just don't trust anybody else around Jalen Brunson to make that big shot. And it feels like the way that they're formatted kind of reminds me of like the post Kevin Durant Thunder with Russell Westbrook, where he's ultimately going a million miles an hour. And then at the last second, he's shooting it out to Danilo Gallinari or whoever's on that Thunder team at that time, and that's how their offense runs. And when he's struggling to hit shots, their offense suffers dramatically from it, and that's what we saw in multiple games this series. And that's kind of the problem with this Knicks team. It's like it's Jalen Brunson centric so much to the point where if he doesn't drop 30 to 40 points a game, they're not going to be in these games because he's not quite that facilitator that we have with the Halliburtons of the world.
Yeah, no. It's like, for me, like, people are obsessed with players like Jalen Brunson, players like Allen Iverson, but the truth of it is the difference between the Pacers and the Knicks is the style of Halliburton and Jalen Brunson, where it doesn't feel like Halliburton is dribbling the ball all the time. And it seems like when he scores, he's getting to either getting to the rim or he's pretty decisive, where it feels like Jalen Brunson is over dribbling it. And I've never seen him like get into a set where it feels like, oh yeah, he's running a quick, efficient offense. That's why the Warriors were so good with Steph Curry, because Steph Curry wasn't going like, let me dribble the ball until I get a great opportunity for a step back. You know what he was doing? Bitch, I'm running and I'm going to wear you out. And Draymond Green's going to be the point guard. And then quick move, I'm to the basket. I'm in my spot. And it's quick and decisive. Like Jalen Brunson, like he's not a player who can go out there and win you an NBA Finals because he needs the ball in his hands to be effective because he's so short. But he's not a guy who can just go out there and spot up for you and let another player take over. So their offense never really has a fluidity to it where he does find open shooters, but when he's moving, it's not like he's running around like someone like Steph Curry is. It's not like he's orchestrating the offense to a level of someone like a Steph Curry off the ball, or someone like Haliburton, someone like a Chris Paul, someone like a Rajon Rondo. Like, he is a great scorer and he's a really good NBA player, but he's not a finals NBA player, in my opinion. Like, finals NBA players for me, if you're going to be a point guard, you have to be a pass first point guard and you have to elevate players around you, where the Knicks have had to add a lot more talent around Jalen Brunson than I feel like the Pacers have had to add around Haliburton. And then also the Knicks are a cautionary tale, and so are the Nuggets, of why you can't win a finals without a bench. You need at least 2 or 3 guys who can come in for you and get it done. The Warriors had it with Sean Livingston and Leandro Barbosa when they'd come in and fill it up. The Pacers have it with Haliburton and Mathurin off the bench. And then LeBron and the Heat would always have a couple shooters who would come in. The Spurs would have a good bench when they won it, like Campaign,
Celtics too. Yeah,
Landry
Celtics
Shamet,
too.
Celtics
Yeah.
too, the Bucks too.
Yeah, all of these teams, I feel like that's why, like we've talked about this multiple times. This is why the super team era is over, because it's no longer about the okay, let's get Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson and make it work. This is no longer the let's get Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and LeBron James together and we'll make it work. Nowadays, it's like okay, let's get Jokic, let's get a Christian Braun, let's get a Bruce Brown in there, and let's build a full cohesive team. And I'm honestly glad that that's the era that we're in. I feel like the Knicks to some extent has been that old ways where okay, let's get Jalen Brunson, let's get Carl Anthony Towns, let's get Mikal Bridges, and let's see what happens. And then I know they got Anunoby and there's some other nice players, Josh Hart or whatever. But the Pacers, much more methodical. They've been good drafting. They get someone like an Obi Toppin, who's been a nice presence off the bench for them as well, making some nice defensive plays. So Pacers, Nuggets, Celtics, teams like that are the ones that have been succeeding in the NBA the last 5 years, roughly.
Yeah, and then too, like the Knicks are paying OG Anunoby $200 million.
Yeah, and
Uh,
they gave up 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges, which
yeah,
is looking terrible now.
And Mikal Bridges was the 4th best player on the Suns, arguably the 3rd best player on the Suns when they made the finals. And like, I feel like you say like Mikal Bridges, like I'm not impressed with him, but like Mikal Bridges is supposed to be a really, really, really good role player, and I feel like he's done that well. The problem is he's not worth as much as you gave up for him, because he did have a game where he hit 6 threes. He keeps you in the game, and he's a nice player on offense who doesn't need to touch the ball a ton. And defensively versus Boston, he was elite, and he's still one of the elite 3 and D players in the league. But he would probably be a better fit on the Lakers
Yeah, that's very
or a
true.
team like that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a hater of Mikal Bridges, and I liked him on the Suns and honestly the Nets. But what the Knicks gave up for him, it just felt like an act of desperation for a team that this might be their last year or two that they'll be super competitive. Because Jalen Brunson's contract is coming up soon. They were paying him. I mean, he remember that deal everyone hated. It was 100 million for 4 years. That deal's almost over now. They're going to have to give him probably a max contract. And
300.
then, Carl Anthony Towns, will he stay? They have Anunoby, who they paid a bunch of money to. Like this Knicks team, maybe they have one more year of competitiveness, and then they're going to have to make some big changes, if not already this offseason, how things work out.
Yeah, how about this? Carl Anthony Towns stays with the Knicks for another year. Then LeBron retires and he goes to the Lakers and plays with Luca.
I can see that happening. That would work. Austin Reeves goes to the Knicks.
I
I think
did
the Knicks
see
finish.
that Austin Reeves is definitely opting out of his deal this year because he's scheduled to make, I believe, $14 million. And on the open market now, he's going to command 30.
I mean, now it's a no-brainer. So
So him,
he might be gone.
and then who's the white guy on the Nuggets? Christian Braun.
Christian Braun. Yeah.
So they're going to go out there, create their own super team. I bet you the Celtics are going to pay both of them. They're like, you know what? Let's see if we can win it all with Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, um,
Yeah. Yeah, let's get
Austin
rid of
Reeves.
Let's get rid of these bums like Jaylen Brown, for example. Let's get rid of these Al Horfords. We need guys who play the right way. Let's get some Christian Braun, Austin Reeves. We need someone like that. Someone who knows how to play hard. We'll get TJ McConnell on that team as well. We need some like
We need
real
smart players.
smart players who play the game the right way. I
Yeah.
can hear a Boston boomer right now talking about that exact talking point.
Wicked smart.
They're wicked smart, just like that Marcus Smart guy.
That's how they're trying to get boomers back in the NBA though. They're like, well, how do you get old boomers who are mildly racist to watch the NBA again? Make it white again. And honestly, the NBA has gotten whiter over the past few years. And I feel like that is to try and bring the boomers back in.
Yeah, I think there's some validity to it, and there's a lot of. I mean, some of these white boys have been hooping too. I mean, Austin Reeves, he's a baller. Peyton Pritchard, he's been killing it for them. Like
Jokic,
it's a white
does
boy.
he
Oh yeah,
count?
Jokic, prime
Can we
example.
count him?
Jokic, yeah.
Luca?
Doncic, yeah. Luka's been killing it. Like we're kind of entering into a white boy summer in the NBA, and I think it's welcomed. I think we're ready
Yeah.
for
Some people would give us Jason Tatum, so we'll take him.
it. Yeah, I mean, I'll take Jason Tatum gladly. But this is going to be great. And ultimately, like like this finals that is soon to be is going to be the Paul George finals, right? We talked about this briefly at the beginning of the show, but how both of these teams traded Paul George and now they are in the finals, and Paul George has never sniffed the finals ultimately.
Yeah, the closest he got to the finals was dunking on LeBron in the Indiana era, and that's kind of where Paul George peaked. Ever since he went from number 24 to number 13, hasn't been the same. And honestly, number 24 had better aura. Like, I think he did it because, in respect of Kobe, because he died, but like, with all due respect, PG 13 kind of you lose all your aura. Now you're giving off the impression I'm kid friendly. Is that really the aura you want to go up against when you're going up against people who are 6'9" and 250 in the NBA? PG 13. How about rated XXX, PG XXX, PG rated R? But PG 13 hasn't been the same, and he is comically had one of the funniest careers in the NBA after Indiana. You see some of these stars just leave these teams, and then it is one thing staying with the same franchise and progressively getting worse. Like, we get it, you're getting older, but when you go from OKC and then you're only there for a little bit, and then we see you like, all right, and then you go to the Clippers after, and then you go to the 76ers, it almost makes your career feel a little bit shorter because you're going to so many different places. So it feels like you fell off a little bit faster. And then you also have so many more opportunities to just choke it away. And I remember the game when they went up against the Jazz and Russell Westbrook. There's a crazy stat line where he had like 41 shots and Paul George was refusing to shoot in that game. It was the one versus Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and they ended up losing that series, and that's what got Donovan Mitchell. That's what made his name. But like, and then you
Yeah.
go the Clippers, nothing happens there. You go the 76ers, and then you end up turning the Sixers into a joke when people are like, oh, we got the Sixers. We're ready. Bring on the Celtics. Bring on the Knicks. Bring on Indiana. Bring in Milwaukee. It's like, all right, well, you didn't even make the playoffs last year.
You're actually like the most disappointing team in the entire NBA last year. No, you're right about it though, because like I knew he was going to leave the Pacers, right? Like go to a big market, sure. He teams up with Russell Westbrook, and it was like they were a fun team. Like I never really thought that they were going to be like substantial with him and Russ, but like it's exciting. He was like still pretty good for them. This is after the injury, um, and then I think ultimately the karma that got to Paul George is when he signs a 5-year deal with the Thunder, and then the very next deal they trade him to the Clippers in order for them to get Kawhi, and they're forming what ultimately felt like what would be ultimately a dynasty at that point. Kawhi was just coming off of the Raptors run, and then Paul George was still an all-star at that point. We're like, okay, great, like this is going to be great, can't wait. And then the Clippers have perpetually, like they always do, have been terrible, perpetual chokers. Paul George, he had that one playoff run with them where they made it to the conference finals for the first time in their history. And then what did they do after that? Lose in the first round. lose in the first round, miss the play-in tournament, and then he ultimately leaves, and then he just fucking basically retires in Philadelphia at this point. Because let's be honest, the Paul George that we saw, he is like, people want to talk about Klay Thompson and what he was the last year in Golden State. No, Paul George, he has turned into Celtic Shaq of the 76ers at this point. He's
Yeah.
entering that territory. He had 16. He averaged 16 points a game last year. He was shooting like 40%, if that, from the field.
Yeah, and I feel like with Paul George, that's like the moment you can point to in the NBA when everyone was like, all right, I feel like the super team thing is getting a little bit ridiculous at that point. And then when Paul George was traded to the LA Clippers, that's kind of when the NBA was shifting from super teams like the Warriors, like Cleveland, LeBron just leaving anytime his team got old and just stacking another franchise. That's when I kind of moved from that to, all right, it's going to be duos now. And now ever since then, it's kind of ushered in a new NBA where the teams that have been patient, had a high IQ and a plan, brought their roster back from last season and even added to it, like OKC, like Indiana, have panned out. And they've just made the nice, subtle moves. They haven't been too aggressive. And sometimes in the NBA, patience is key. Just being able to make the right decision, getting the best deal possible. And the fact that you got SGA for Paul George and the amount of picks that you did, and then Indiana flipped it into Haliburton, it almost is ushering a new era where Milwaukee just won. Why? They were patient. They went out there, and then when they needed to make a move to make their team better, they went out there and traded for Drew Holiday, and it worked out. We saw the Suns get to the finals. We saw the Nuggets get to and win the finals. We saw Boston after trading Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett. How long ago was that? But how long does it take for it to develop into a championship? Like sometimes it takes a decade or longer, and you just need to be patient. And the teams that just go out there and make all of these the Suns and make all these ridiculous trades, it ends up just biting you in the ass, and then you're heading down to a full like a junkie, and then you're gonna have to go to NBA rehab, and then Adam Silver is gonna decide to just tariff you in the lottery for the next 20 years, and you're not getting a number one pick.
I feel like the '08 Celtics ultimately, it distorted everybody else's mind, and then it didn't help with what happened with Miami in the early 2010s, um, where ultimately like these teams just automatically just enter the finals as soon as they construct their team. Like that's not normal. The Clippers felt like they could do that, and they're still doing these pick swaps. Like this trade is not over. Like the Thunder, they traded SGA, Danilo Gallinari, and then what ended up being ultimately 7 picks, like 5 first round picks. One of them turned into Jalen Williams. And then they have a pick swap this year, and the Clippers were much worse than the Thunder. So, I mean, ultimately, the Clippers are still suffering from this deal. Like, this might be worse than the Kevin Durant trade, honestly. So, um, very much a disaster for the Clippers. Anything that Paul George touches has turned into um, disappointment for the NBA the last 5 years.
Or a gold mine, depending on how you look at it. If you're the Pacers or the Thunder, like Paul George touched me and I feel great.
Bob Gino wants to know if we're going to cover the WNBA. He says he is very bullish on the NBA. Caitlin Clark, he mentions in the comments. Bob Gino, thank you for tuning into the Brickyard. Appreciate you. He is demanding we talk about something other than the NBA. Let's talk about the league that is running the basketball world, WNBA. Caitlin Clark got banged up. Hate to see it. And then, Angel Reese made some history as well. First player, quickest player to get to 500 points and 500 rebounds. So we got to make sure that Bob Gino is satisfied. WNBA news. We got to catch him up.
Yeah, so Angel Reese got 500 of her own missed shots. Congratulations. I don't know if you've ever watched Angel Reese play, but they're like, oh my God, Angel Reese going off. The funniest thing about the WNBA was the WNBA fans figured out what NBA Centil was. And they were like, he had a post that Angel Reese drug tested after 13-point explosion and 10 rebounds. And people are like, what, Grok, is this true? And it's like, no, it's like, it's just trolling Angel Reese. But like, I watched her play and like, I counted 7 of her rebounds was just because she like airballed or just threw it off the backboard. to herself. And now that Caitlin Clark is out with a quad injury for the next 2 weeks, the WNBA can finally pack up its bags. And then I'm interested to see how much of their viewership they lose, because a lot of people will be like, well, no one's going to watch because of Caitlin Clark. It's like, well, yeah, when the best player in the league that already doesn't have fans isn't going to be there, you're not going to have a ton of people interested in it. Very
Not
bullish.
according to Bob Gino. He's hurting that the Mercury will be very good. I have heard the same. I'm not here to diss Angel Reese, but it is also, if we're looking at just pure numbers, she shoots 30% from the field, and half of her rebounds are her own rebounds. I mean, it's not an insult to say this to her. This is just the truth about Angel Reese as a player. It's just she's got the personality to be one of the faces of the league in the WNBA. Problem is that she's not even close to the same player as Caitlin Clark, and I can look at her stats as well, but it's night and
Also,
day.
I saw a video of I think her name or his name is Brandon Griner. And after the game, Brandon grabbed the microphone and she or he was being interviewed, and just starts running up to the ref while live on TV being interviewed, and starts cursing out the ref on TV while she's being interviewed. I'm like, we traded a Russian arms dealer for Brandon Griner? Are you kidding me?
That's awful. That's terrible. I don't even know what to say to that comment. But that's
This
that's
is
rough.
a live television, but like honestly, I'm like, at this point, go for it. I want all of these players to start yelling at the refs. I want to see fights on a nightly basis. And if you want to make the WNBA great, make it violent. Make it the hockey version of basketball. I want to see penalty boxes because there's fights in the WNBA. I don't want to see flagrant fouls. I want to see you get extra free throws if you foul someone harder. Like if I knock someone out, I get 2 free throws. Like you want to make the WNBA interesting, bring fighting into the WNBA. And I feel like it'll be really interesting. You have to make it a reality TV show. I want to see them yelling at the refs. I want to see some over the top WWE shit, or no one's gonna take it seriously if it's basketball. It's like, did Caitlin Clark foul Angel Reese too hard? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think we should give them all steroids and meth. If you give those guys those two things, we just got to make them extra agitated ultimately. Um, Bob Gino says we should cover the court in mud. I think half of their audience would love that, to be honest. We got a big WA and WNBA fan in the comments section tonight. Thank you, Bob Gino, for
No, we
tuning in.
have
And
the we have the WNBA fan on the comment section.
Bob Gino, thank you for the love. You're gonna love it when we talk about our top 25 film budgets of all time, ranking them, and ultimately just going through them. Are they good movies? Are they terrible? So I hope you were satisfied with our WNBA take. Um, some of them of which talking about potentially they them centers of the NBA. I don't know what to say
Brandon
to that, but
Griner.
I've never heard the Brandon Grinder comment, but that is actually poetic, to be
That
honest.
is, I actually haven't heard that name anymore, so I feel like everyone has heard it here for the first time. So you get an original
It's
bit
like when you
there.
said when you called what's that player? Oh, the guy for the running back for the Bucky, or we call him the gas station. I
The
feel like
gas
that caught
station.
on. That caught
It
on
did.
pretty quickly. I felt. WNBA, thank you for your time. Let's talk about cinema for a second.
But yeah, no, I saw Mission Impossible 8 this weekend, and I saw that it was like the fifth highest, most expensive movie at all time. And I kind of went at the list. I'm like, wait a minute. Most of these movies are not great. So I felt like it'd be a good topic to go through the most expensive movies, because I do feel like, well, there is some extremely epic scenes in the new Mission Impossible movie. The first hour of it felt like an episode of NCIS on NBC. So like the first hour with the plot, like the movie really starts like an hour and a half into it, and then ever since then it feels like a Mission Impossible movie. But it's like they definitely, like, I don't know how they spent that much money on it and then they couldn't come up with a better story, especially when it's a part two and you're gonna justify making this a part one and a part two. just to squeeze out a little bit more money. But like the stunts in it were really cool. I mean, he's in the air. You probably have all seen it where he's going from one plane to the other. And then the submarine scene is really cool. I'm a sucker for anything ocean in movies. But it was the fifth most expensive movie. I think it's actually on the list, the third most expensive movie of all time to make. And, the story of it was kind of mid. I don't know if it's going to make its money back, but also on that list, we have like the Avengers, I feel like Jurassic World, and then a couple of the new Star Wars movies. You have it in front of you.
I do. So should we do this adjusted for inflation or not adjusted for inflation?
We can do adjusted for inflation.
Okay, so adjusted for inflation, we were going to go through the top 25. Let's do the top. I'll go through the top five first. The number one most expensive movie ever was Star Wars Force Awakens, which adjusted for inflation cost them close to $600 million with Force Awakens. Now, they made it back and then some in that movie. But Force Awakens, for a guy who just recently watched pretty much all of the Star Wars except for the Disney Star Wars, I can say that I am cautioned to watch the remaining Star Wars that are left, 7 through 9. Force Awakens is the only one that I am not worried to watch because I know, like, when I watched it, first when I saw it in theaters and then watching it again, like, Force Awakens is a solid Star Wars movie. It deserves to get some respect. The only reason why it's been disrespected in the Star Wars community is because of what came after. But of the movies so far to start off this most expensive list, not surprised that Force Awakens is here, but I think that it is a overall good movie. It's kind of very similar to the original series, but they did a lot of things right there. So Force Awakens, I give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, it's like when you hear a pop song. It's fine, it's cool, it's
Yeah.
catchy. You'll see it everywhere for a little bit, but eventually it'll fade away into obscurity. And that's kind of exactly what that movie is. Does it hold up as well as the original A New Hope that they remade? No, but I feel like it's fine. Will I ever watch it again? Probably not.
Yeah, I'd only watch it again because I'm a Star Wars fan, but if I'm not a Star Wars fan, I wouldn't. Second movie is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which
That's
did
the
ultimately make
second
its money.
one,
Yep,
I
this
believe.
one cost them $540 million adjusted for inflation.
My question is how? Because half of that movie takes place in a warehouse. So where did you spend all of that money? I don't know if you've seen that one or remember it, but I just remember, oh, sick. The first half of the movie is a volcano blowing up. The island is destroyed. Pretty epic. And then the second half of the movie is them in a warehouse and we're auctioning off dinosaurs now. Ha ha ha. That is way more interesting than dinosaurs getting out into the world and eating people. Yeah,
Well, I know why it
definitely. I
costs so
want to
much
see them
money.
sold on a Black Arms deal.
I know why it costs so much money. First of all, they had to wait for the volcano to blow up, which doesn't run on trees, you know? And
That's
then they had to
true.
find the dinosaurs. You think dinosaurs are hard to find? Like, they've been extinct for so long. You have to find the ones that are hiding away in those remote islands. So, like, I get why Jurassic Park costs so much money. It's because they had to hire those dinosaurs. And dinosaurs, they're not easy to work with. They're not very human friendly. So I totally get it. Bob Gino likes Jurassic World. Thank you, Jurassic World enthusiast. He liked it. We weren't a big fan. Third one is Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, which I believe is the third movie in this franchise here. Fourth movie in this franchise. Pirates of the Caribbean. This is where my expertise falls off. I have not seen this movie.
The fifth one?
So I haven't seen any Pirates of the Caribbean, which I feel like is wrong, but I have not
Um,
seen them all.
Yeah, I feel like it's okay if you haven't seen Pirates of the Caribbean. I like the second one a lot. The first one is nostalgic for a lot of people. The second one is just way too long. The fourth one is okay, but I actually like the fifth one a lot. Not necessarily because it's a good movie. I feel like it's one of those movies that definitely overstays its welcome. But I saw it when I was working at a movie theater. Kind of have good memories of when I saw that movie. But I really like Javier Bardem as the villain
Hmm.
of that movie. So I can kind of understand why they spent that much money on that movie. But is it one of the best movies of all time? No, definitely
No.
not. Will I watch it again? Maybe. It's like a pretty
Eh,
fun popcorn movie.
yeah. Number four, I have very strong opinions at number four. Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, the last movie in the Star Wars franchise, which single handedly ruins every part of Star Wars pre and post. Genuinely, it took me. This movie came out in 2019. It cost them 512 million to ruin many children's childhoods. If people want to talk about Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, then they need to talk about Rise of Skywalker because it is the biggest piece of garbage I've ever seen in my life. If you want to talk about, if I had to make my top 5 least favorite movies of all time, Rise of Skywalker is easily number one. Why did they bring back Palpatine? Why was this plot absolutely dog shit? Why did they bring back J.J. Abrams? There's so many whys. What is this plot? This movie is a giant disaster. You've heard me shit on the Elvis movie very hard. This movie makes the Elvis movie look like it is Casablanca, like it's The Godfather, like it is like prime cinema. Rise of Skywalker is the biggest piece of garbage I've ever seen in my life, and I could have made this movie for $10, never mind 500 million. This movie is complete dog shit and easily the worst movie to this point, and I don't think there's going to be a worse one.
No, I don't think there'll be a worse one. And you know the thing about the Rise of Skywalker and the tricky part about me is when I talk about that movie is I watched it in theaters, and when I think back about that movie and I try and remember what happened, I don't remember anything, to be honest.
Me neither. I remember watching this with Spinners, Devin. You know Devin.
Oh
Um,
God, did he have like a bro? I
we
I
both did.
don't,
We
bro.
both did. We both did because we're watching this and we're super excited. We watched The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi together. We're super excited for it. This one comes out. We're like, why is Palpatine back? He's been dead for 40 years, but we'll hear him out. We'll see what they say. And we look at each other. We went to Chunky's for this one. We just look at each other at like 30 minutes into the movie. We're like, this movie kind of sucks so far. An hour in, we're like, this movie sucks. And then by the end of the movie, we're just looking at each other like, what the fuck is happening exactly? Like, this movie was such a mess. It was so bad. Chunky's didn't make it any better. No offense to Chunky's. But Rise of Skywalker, absolutely dog shit. The only benefit of that movie is that we got free beer because they didn't card us and we were younger at that time. So we got basically, you know, under 21 beer, which was cool. But other than that, that movie was fucking heinous. And we just crashed out in the car for like 2 hours after the movie as guys who are, I would say at the time, pretty diehard Star Wars fans. Now, I don't give a fuck about Star Wars like that. I don't watch the series. I don't care if they make more movies. Like, they ruined it with this movie. This movie's dog shit.
Yeah, no, last time I went to Chunky's, it was during Barbenheimer,
Oh, yeah.
and we were seeing the Meg 2 because out of those three movies, that was the movie I was most interested in. I had my priorities straight. Was the Meg 2. And we were just walking in the hallway, and I hear these girls like, "If 700 people show up tomorrow, I'm gonna fucking quit on the spot." And then we had this guy in front of us with his kids, and he ended up getting there and he bought tickets, and he didn't realize that part of the tickets he bought was at another table in front of you. And if you've never been to Chunky's, their stick is it's kind of one of those you sit down and eat movie theaters, and their thing is car seats. So he ends up buying a seat in front of them, and he has two sons, and he ends up buying two seats and then one seat, and then there's a couple with a baby in front of
Oh,
them,
no.
and it looks like they're like in their early 20s and just had that baby, and he sits down and he's like, they just look at him like, what the fuck? And then half the movie he's standing there, and then it's like one of those where they order and then he ends up ordering a pitcher of soda, and then he doesn't get it until there's like 10 minutes left in the movie, and he keeps like trying to flag people down, and then he ends up getting two pitchers of soda while the credits are rolling, and they're both full. And then we go,
What a
and
loser.
then our server never comes back, and we went to find them and try and pay, but we're just like, nah. It must have been so busy that they're crashing out. And like Barbenheimer really broke a lot of theater employees because theaters went from slow to suddenly a ton of people were just rushing you, and they were not staffed for it at the time because people decided to stop going seeing movies for a little bit. But
Understandably so. But that movie is terrible. Number 5 is the Age of Ultron, which I'm not familiar with Marvel as Avengers as much. Is that when Thanos is introduced, or is that back when they have Loki in the series? This is
that one
2015.
is James Spader as the villain, and it's kind of a robot. So essentially, Tony Stark is trying to create like a suit of armor around the world. So he wants to create like a superficial AI that can kind of protect the world, made of essentially what Captain America's shield is. And then AI decides, ooh, I want to destroy the world. So it's almost Marvel's version of Terminator. So I feel like
Hmm.
that movie, when I go back and watch it, is more enjoyable than the first one for me. Where for me, the first Avengers movie is hard to go back and rewatch. Just kind of with Joss Whedon's film style, it almost feels like a TV show at times.
Is this one? This is the second one of the Avengers, right?
Yeah, it's the second one.
Okay, but this
It's
one,
when they're still trying.
this one cost them 484 million. Ended up making them 1.4 million. So I'd say that they got their money back. But is this, of the movies we've gone over so far, is this a solid movie? It's a good movie overall?
Yeah, I'd give it. It's like a B plus plus movie for me. It's not an A movie, but like for a Marvel movie, for like a movie you want to go see like with the whole family, it's definitely entertaining.
Okay. Then we get into the bottom of the, we get to the sixth spot here, which is Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, which I believe is the second one of the series. But this one cost them, adjusted for inflation, $455 million, which they end up making back 963, which makes their money
Yeah,
back. But I feel like that isn't necessarily, I feel like
that
not
was
what they
the
expected.
fourth one actually.
This one looks like it came out in '07.
Yeah, that's the fourth.
Okay. So yeah, I haven't seen these, but was this a good Pirates of the Caribbean movie?
This is. I think this is the only one I haven't watched, or every time I've tried to watch it, I fell asleep. So
So that's a bad sign. That's a bad sign overall. Um, and then number seven's Endgame, which Endgame, you I know at one point worked in a movie theater. I don't know if it's this one or the one before. Endgame is when they defeat Thanos, I believe, and they reverse the everything that happened in the Infinity War. This one I remember being massive. Made 2.8 billion, and adjusted for inflation, it would cost them 438 million dollars to make. I know that this and Infinity War were cultural moments of the 2010s. So I know that these movies definitely made their money back. And I did watch Infinity War recently and I liked it. So I know these two movies with Thanos, one of the best movie villains of the last 2010, 2010s. So this one I would give a thumbs up for.
yeah, and I think it was Andrew Scholes had this take. He was like, Infinity War of the 2010s, maybe all time, was the best movie experience maybe ever. With what they pulled off, I mean, when they did the Avengers with Marvel, like superhero movies already were kind of a joke, and then they got legitimized with the Dark Knight and the early 2000s X-Men movies with Hugh Jackman, and then with the Avengers movie, that was like the first real successful movie where they were able to bring in like four different major superheroes together and have them in the same movie. And then the fact that they could make the Infinity War movie and Endgame feel so fluid, balancing that many characters, I feel like it's one of the greatest accomplishments in cinema. Whether it's the best movie technically as far as writing, like that's definitely debatable. You can poke holes in this movie, but like just the sheer accomplishment with the scale of what they're dealing with, this is definitely a movie where you're like, yeah, you can justify that budget, especially with how big the cast is, the graphic effects. Where if you look at a movie above it, though, like Pirates of the Caribbean 5, that's all going to Johnny Depp and Javier Bardem. Like, that's not as justifiable for me as the Avengers. Even like the new Star Wars, that's not as justifiable to spend that much money on them versus something like Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense for them. And the one that's following Endgame is Infinity War, which I know Infinity War, that's when Thanos was at the peak of his powers. This is when they blend, and both of these movies were massive, like cultural moments of the 2010s. I remember Thanos, like they introduced him into Fortnite eventually. They had him across multiple different medias. I know they ultimately put him in some TV shows, but ultimately, um, this this period of the Avengers, I feel like, is the peak Avengers when they had Thanos as the villain, when they had all these guys culminating together after all these movies coming together, bridging them together. Like this was the, I feel like the peak of Marvel, and they haven't really recovered since from these two.
Yeah, and the thing is, they had been teasing Thanos as the villain since 2010. So they had made this plan all the way back in 2008 for how they wanted the cinematic universe to play out, how all of these movies were going to fit together cohesively, and then make it. And then after that, well, it's like if we stop making these movies, we're literally, Disney sees it as burning billions of dollars. But I think it's actually the opposite, because in the long run, if they said, hey, after Endgame, we're going to take 5 years off to make the next plan, because we just had from 2008 to 2019 arguably the greatest TV show ever, and we made it into a cinematic theatrical release. So we're going to take 5 years off to plan the next one. I felt like they could have been a lot more successful than, okay, if we stop making these, we're going to burn millions of dollars, because then people would get nostalgic, kind of forget what they were missing, and it wouldn't feel like the same old repetitive garbage. Because even if they do come out with something that's really high quality, it's just going to feel like the same shit rehashed.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like they also made that same mistake with Star Wars with Disney as well. But Avengers, because of how often they were making them with, they had Captain America's coming out, they had Doctor Strange coming out, they had Guardians of the Galaxy. Like there was all these different movies that were also coming out at that same time. For all of it to come into Endgame, which ultimately could have just been the end of of this, cinematic universe for a short while, I think that everyone would have benefited from a small break and then come back with the new lore. Basically, that would have worked better.
Yeah, exactly. It just feels like you sim 2K and then you're past like the NBA, right now.
Yeah, you're in
It's like
2040
2K and
and
24. Yeah.
yeah, you're in 2040 and like I don't know, fucking Cade Cunningham is like 39 and has like 50,000 points. It's like, okay, this is the NBA we live in now. Number 9 is Titanic, which was at one point the highest grossing film. I believe now it's Endgame. I think Endgame is now the highest grossing film of all time. But this movie initially cost 200 million. Adjusted for inflation, it's nearly double, $392 million adjusted for inflation, coming out in the 90s. Um, Massive James Cameron film, but um, honestly, when I go back to this movie, I feel like it's not that good. I feel like it's very overrated. It's a fine movie. Like we love Leonardo DiCaprio, but I just hear about all of the how much he hated Kate Winslet in this movie, and the movie itself. I just feel like it's
Really?
overhyped. Yeah, I like when I watch the Titanic. I'm not really moved by it. Maybe I just don't care
Well,
enough.
not that.
Maybe
Like Leo hated Kate Winslet.
yeah, him and Kate Winslet were like at each other's throats throughout the entire movie. So it's like when he dies in the movie, I have that in the back of my mind, which maybe I shouldn't. But when I think about the Titanic, I'm like, they didn't get along. They hated each other. So like they don't really love each other. That's probably my fault for getting too deep into it. But yeah, they weren't fans of each other.
Yeah, no, I've only seen the scene from Titanic where he's drawing her, but you know, that's all I've seen. I haven't actually watched the Titanic. Like for me, I'm like I know what happens here, and it just kind of feels like a sappy love story, and I'm not interested in like young Leo that much, to be honest. Especially the stories I've heard of him when he was younger. It's like I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why I hated Justin Bieber. Like Leo was doing the same when he was younger.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really care about Leo until we get to like the Departed or like the movie
Django
about
Unchained.
yeah, those movies were good. Um, Moving on from there, number 10 is the Spider-Man 3, which is actually hilarious that this is on here because I remember this movie when it came out.
The Tobey Maguire one.
No, no, no. The Topher Grace one. Remember when he was Venom?
No.
That's the movie. Emo Spider-Man is the 10th highest expensive movie of all time. 258 million adjusted for inflation, $391 million in today's money for Spider-Man 3, which ultimately felt like a lot of people felt like it ruined that trilogy because the first two, like we had like Doctor Octopus, we had Sandman, and then Venom, who like I think of all the Spider-Man villains is like the coolest one potentially. And I honestly think that like Tom Hardy's was like better, obviously. But instead of hiring someone to play Venom as like this like emo, dark energy guy, they hire fucking Eric Foreman to be Venom. I'm like, what are we doing? And that is where
Yeah.
it went wrong. And that movie ultimately killed the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. I think it's still respected in like the superhero space, but that movie is a giant blemish on that franchise. It went from like a good trilogy to no, Spider-Man 3 fucking sucks.
I mean, sucks is all a matter of context. It is this movie technically bad? Yes, but is this movie art? Absolutely. Is this a movie I can go to and watch and enjoy and laugh my ass off? Yeah. If you want to have a good night, take a gummy, have a couple strong craft beers, and then just have a good time watching Spider-Man's like it's a superhero movie at the end of the day, but like I had not watched that 70s show before watching Spider-Man 3 the first time. So watching that 70s show and then rewatching Spider-Man 3, I'm like, "Oh, now I get why people hated this movie, especially when you grew up with him as Eric Foreman and I didn't." And then Sandman in this movie I think is kind of funny, but like it just seems like I've never thought Tobey Maguire was an amazing actor as Spider-Man. He kind of gets the dorkiness and he gets the vibe of Spider-Man, but like my favorite Spider-Man is Andrew Garfield personally, but I felt like this movie it's like is it really bad? Yeah, but is it hilarious at times and is it almost to the level with his relationship with MJ? Is it to the same level as Padme and Anakin at sometimes? Absolutely. But I eat that stuff
Yeah.
up, especially with this Spider-Man movie. It's just so funny.
I think it kind of like I don't think it's nearly as bad of a movie as Batman and Robin, but I think it's the same. Like you can get high or get drunk and watch this movie, and it's hilarious to watch. Like it's not a bad watch at all. It's not like suffering through it. It's hilarious because you see like you see emo Eric Foreman, you see emo Tommy Maguire who's like wearing eyeliner and going to the club, like why this was the arc they went with, I don't know exactly, but it's like a laughably bad movie, but in a good way. A movie that you could go back and appreciate. But tied with Spider-Man 3 is Fast and the Furious 10, which was 391
10?
million. Yes, Fast and the Furious 10, which
That
came
was
out
the
like 2 years ago.
other movie on the list for top 5 movies that weren't adjusted for inflation. Some of you may be a little bit lost if you're watching this and haven't caught up. We're doing this adjusted for inflation right now. So comment your most ridiculous over budgeted movie, but Fast and Furious 10. I watched that movie in theaters. Oh, what a bad movie. And a movie is bad when you walk out and then the next day you're like, "Hey, do you remember what we did yesterday? Like, we didn't even drink yesterday and I totally forgot what I did." You know? Didn't have any
Yeah.
vitamins, didn't drink, and like I just remember nothing from that movie. And it's one of those movies that's so bad it almost starts to make you angry. There's like two movies I've watched in theater. I've had that experience. It was this one, and then it was like the 1517 of Paris, but like just a bad movie. And there's no reason to spend this much money on a Fast and Furious movie.
Isn't this the one where they go to fucking space or some shit? Like, I
No,
just know
that's
that
nine. This one's
either
just
way,
mid.
this one, like, I just feel like with Fast and the Furious, like, the first, like, seven were, like, fairly decent plot wise as far as, like, it's for car guys. Like, it's for guys who like cars. If you don't like Transformers, you like the Fast and the Furious movies. Fast cars, Paul Walker, women, fucking whatever. But after Paul Walker dies, they just basically just throw a bunch of shit together because they no longer take the Fast and the Furious series seriously. And now I think they're finally ending it. If they actually end that movie, we'll see. But movie was a disaster, tanked. Critics hated it, but Fast and the Furious 10, number 10. And then we get into the teens, and there's two movies that both had the same budget adjusted for inflation. Both came out the same year, by the way. One of which maybe more your specialty, one more mine. 2017, 385 million. Justice League and The Last Jedi. Two
Hmm.
franchises there. I can say The Last Jedi ruined this sequel trilogy that Disney made. Who would have thought hiring three different directors for three different movies, one of which Ryan Johnson, who's an actual director, would hate everything that J.J. Abrams was going to do, ruined every plot of it. But objectively alone, I didn't hate the movie. Watching it the first time, but did also ruin the plot of this trilogy. But overall, massive budget. Not surprised by the budget of this at all. And then Justice League. This is when they essentially, assemble the DC version of the Avengers.
Yeah, and this is Justice League, but not because Zack Snyder's daughter died while he was filming this movie. And this movie went through a lot of reshoots, a lot of rewrites where they were changing it. And then they ended up bringing in. So you have Zack Snyder. You know what Zack Snyder is known for? Slow motion and everything is dark and dour. And then you bring in who to replace him to finish the movie and finish the reshoots? Josh Whedon. And there's the concerns with the DCU is getting too heavy, too dark. So they're like, you know what? Let's bring in a more comedic guy. People like the Avengers. So we'll bring in Joss Whedon, the guy who did the first two Avengers movie. You end up putting out a 2 hour cut of the movie that makes absolutely no sense. And then they let Zack Snyder finish his movie and they release it in 4 1 hour parts on Max. And it was a 4 hour movie. And then it was absolutely amazing. And I like the 4 hour Snyder cut. Is it the best superhero movie? No. But Ben Affleck, to me, is one of my favorite Batmans. And I am pretty sad that we never got a Ben Affleck Batman. And then Henry Cavill is one of the best Supermans here. And then I like Cyborg in this movie. I like Jason Momoa and Wonder Woman in this movie. So it's like, for me, like, I feel like the reason why this movie's budget was so expensive is just because they had to go back, reshoot it, and then rewrite a lot of it. With Star Wars, like, no, they just filmed that movie all the way through and just spent a ton of money on it for no reason.
Yeah, and they probably paid Mark Hamill a shit ton of movie money to do it.
That's probably
Um,
half of it. Like
yeah,
the first movie, Harrison Ford. The second movie, Mark Hamill.
yeah, they didn't want to come back. They retired.
Isn't
Um,
Carrie Fisher in this movie? Like she like died while they were filming it, and then this was her last movie.
yeah, so like for Star Wars fans, like she died like right after Rogue One, and then the next movie come out the year later. The Last Jedi, they used like old footage from the Force Awakens, and throughout the first 7 movies of Star Wars, Princess Leia doesn't have any powers. Whatever. Um, they kind of tease it in the last like Return of the Jedi. This movie, her ship blows up, and she uses the Force to float back to where they are. Because if you watch the plot of the movie, they're just getting chased by this giant star destroyer that can shoot them down at any minute, but it just doesn't. It's like basically the OJ Bronco chase, but in Star Wars. If you rewatch The Last Jedi, that's literally what it is. It's this giant ship that's chasing them. The Last Jedi is like fucking, the Jedi ship is fucking out of gas, so they can't do anything. And they're just chasing them, but they're not like racing them, and they could easily blow them up. That's essentially what The Last Jedi is. It's just a giant OJ chase, but in space.
Yeah, OJ in space. A lot of OJs. OJ played golf in space.
Very good. Golf. Um, and then continuing the list, we have Doctor Strange. Both 2022 movies. We have Doctor Strange with 377 and the Avatar: Way of Water sequel, 377. So 2 movies again. Avatar, I think, makes sense for that big of a budget because at least with James Cameron movies, they're trying to be like technically advancing, and this took forever to make. I never watched it because I didn't care because the first Avatar, like, cool, but I don't care to rewatch it. And then Doctor Strange movie. I didn't watch this, but I wonder if Bob Gino is still in the chat. I know he's a big Doctor Strange guy.
Yeah, I like the Doctor Strange movies. If anything, like it's one of the better new Marvel series. So I feel like that was one of the better movies. They kind of film it like a horror movie. So I thought that one was good. Did it justify this amount of budget? No, probably not. But does it have some cool scenes? Yeah. And then Way of the Water definitely makes sense. Have I had any desire to go back and rewatch it? No,
No.
unfortunately. Like to me, it feels like so exhausting watching that movie. Like I saw it in IMAX 3D, got the full experience, and the thing is with those movies, there's just nothing to cling onto to make me want to go back and rewatch it and feel like I'm gonna find something new. Eminem music is art. That's what Bob Gino said.
Yep.
Doctor
And
Strange's
Doctor
guess.
Strange. He loves it. And then these next two movies, Tangled and Harry Potter and the Half Blood Prince. I don't know why Tangled is fucking 16th most expensive movie ever. I feel like they probably could have made it for half the money, but as a movie, it's fine. Not a big Disney Tangled guy, but whatever. And then Harry Potter Half Blood Prince, another movie I don't think that needs to be $366 million in today's money, but
Or made
th-
at all. They could have just left the Harry Potter books alone and not made them in movies where we just have people screeching about them all the time. I feel like society would just be better if we left them as books.
you're probably right, honestly. I am not a Harry Potter fan, you know that, and I don't care to watch. I don't. I read the books up until Orders of Phoenix, and then I just stopped. I know he dies eventually. Sorry, spoilers, but like I don't care to watch the movies. I never. I watched some of them, and I don't care to watch the rest of them because I don't care.
Honestly, for me too, like Harry Potter movies, like any person who's like, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, generally, I don't like any of their music, TV taste at all, or life choices. So, yeah, not a
Yes.
Harry Potter guy.
Now these next two movies are hilarious. I'm actually going to do them broken up because it's funnier. Number 18, highest grossing film or highest most expensive movie of all time, John Carter of Disney. This was a movie that was one of the biggest busts of all time. It cost Disney $300 million to make this movie back in 2012. This was supposed to be like their next big, like Prince of Persia, like going to be like the next big franchise that they make. They dedicated this movie to Steve Jobs after he passed. This was supposed to be in honor of him. And the movie grossed it for, if their budget's adjusted to inflation, it cost $306 million to make. Box office, they made $280 million. So they not only lost money, but if you count in marketing cost, it cost them over 350 million in lost money at Disney. Massive, massive failure. One of the biggest bums of all time, actually.
Yeah, maybe they needed a tax write off. Who knows?
Maybe. I mean, if they needed a tax write off, then fucking make John Carter too, I guess, because that movie was a complete nightmare. And then after that is a movie of all the movies that we've talked about. I've never seen this movie, nor have I ever heard of it, but it cost $355 million in today's money, and they made back $264 million. This is the Kevin Costner's Waterworld back in the 90s. Never heard of this movie. Did not do well commercially, but fucking Kevin
Kind of a
Costner.
cult classic now for musicians. That's all I know about it. But yeah, I've never seen this movie. Not a huge like. I don't know. I'm like anything before the 2000s. I'm pretty blurry on. There's a lot of probably gems I need to go back and watch from the like 90s and 80s, even 70s.
Probably, but I never heard of this movie, and I feel like of all the movies, this is the only one that was before, outside of Titanic, the only one before 2000. So
Hmm.
strange that this got such a huge budget, especially a movie that is about um water. I don't even know what the
I
fuck
mean,
this
come
movie's
on,
about.
bro. He's coming off Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Sure. Um, and then so we go into the 20s now. We have yet another Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest, 2006, 350 million. And then the original Avatar, which was 347 million adjusted for inflation. Avatar, again, we talked about the last one, but first Avatar, visually stunning, movie wise, it's fine. And then Pirates of the Caribbean, another fucking massive budgeted Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
Yeah. Um, Pirates of the Caribbean. I guess it's expensive when you have someone like Johnny Depp. But do they need to spend that much money on them? No, because I'm pretty sure. Like Dead Man's Chest is one of my favorite ones, but like, did they need to spend that much money on it to be like one of the highest? No, like people don't care that much about it.
Yeah, I would agree. And then to end our list, we have a couple more. Um, Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice, 345 million. Ant Man and the Wasp, 2023, 341 million. Um, and then there's
Ant Man
two
and the
more, but I'll say them.
Wasp, the
Yeah,
superhero that people care about the least. Like how much of that? That was even before Walton Goggins was huge because he was He was the villain in that one.
This one was like on the. This was a pretty big flop because this was after COVID, and I'm looking at the money. So it cost them $340 million to make, and they made back 476 million. So they kind of just broke even with this movie. Like they didn't end up making a profit at all. And who would have thought in this movie? And I think this ended up being a flop. And it also, Paul Rudd got a Razzie Award for this. So maybe not good. Maybe not a great sequel.
People just
Eh,
hate Paul Rudd.
yeah. And then Dawn of Justice. I've heard mixed results about this movie. This is the um like Ben Affleck Batman again, but remember this got shit on critically, but there's kind of like a cult following with it now.
Eh, yeah, there is. You have like the diehard comic book fans who are like the people who still smoke weed, work at fast food restaurants and movie theaters. Every 20-year-old or high schooler who works right now knows them because they're probably being sexually harassed by them at their job who think this is one of the greatest movies ever. And then you have the people like me who watch them like, this is going to be like Batman and Robin in a couple of years because the biggest problem with this movie and the biggest mistake is Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was originally interviewing for Jimmy Olsen, who's a reporter, and then Zack Snyder's like, "Oh, you're pretty menacing. Do you want to play Lex Luthor?" And then he like has a weird scene where he like sticks a Jolly Rancher in a guy's mouth, and then he's just super like twitchy and like the whole time, and it's like he like ruins the movie, and they spend so much time on his character. It's like we just want to see Henry Cavill and Batman fight. And the fact, like, my biggest problem with this movie as well, like, the fact that people are like Superman or Batman with time to prepare. I'm like, no. And then the end of this movie, it's save Martha. Like, what do you mean? It's his mother's name. Like, both the reason why Batman spares him is like both of their names, mother's names are Martha, and that's why Batman doesn't kill Superman. It's because he's like save Martha, and then Batman has PTSD to his mom getting shot. He's like, what do you mean? And then Lex Luthor had kidnapped Superman's mom. Lois Lane runs in like it's his mother's maiden name, and then Batman realizes like our mothers have the same name. Maybe he is human.
That's off.
Like
That's a horrible
that's
plot.
like the biggest like cringe moment with that movie. Like, really? You couldn't think of anything better than that?
Yeah, that's bad. That's really bad. Um, Now we end the highest budgeted movies with Solo, a Star Wars movie, which I'm surprised is this high because I feel like again this is a movie that they probably could have cut the budget in half and still been fine. And then the most recent Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny, which I've heard was a massive bust. As a Star Wars fan, I've never seen Solo, and I don't care to. Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny, with 80-year-old Harrison Ford, who made a shit ton of money from it. I bet. Um, it was a massive bomb, critically.
Yeah, I mean, if your lead actor in the movie has to have a catheter,
I'm
it
curious what
might
he
be a
made.
bomb. How are they spending that much money on Indiana Jones? To, but Indiana Jones,
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm sorry, it cut off a little bit, but and the funny part, I looked at Indiana Jones, and he only made 25 million with this movie, which I'm kind of surprised by because he made 75 million with Force Awakens because he demanded to get a $60 million salary and dividends of the movie. This movie, I don't know why it cost fucking 337 million, and they ended up making I think 400 million from this movie. So barely. I don't even think they did break. I think they actually ended up losing money. And then for the Solo Star Wars movie, again, they hired the wrong Solo. I don't know why they hired fucking what was it, Tanner Ergart, who Aiden Ehrenreich as Han Solo. What are we doing, dude? Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. Like, just didn't make sense casting wise why they did that, but money, I guess, talks, and that's why their budget was as big as it was. But 25 highest budget movies. Of these 25 movies, how many of these would you say are like good movies, good popcorn, go to the theater type movies?
Like good popcorn, like go to the theater movies. I have like the 25, probably like 11, maybe not even half.
Yeah, because I see a lot of bombs in here. I also see a lot of movies that like were just actually horrible, like Rise of Sky. Like half of the Star Wars movies we talked about were terrible. There's John Carter, which was a massive bust. And I see a lot of other movies that I feel like they could definitely have done it for half the budget. So,
Yeah, and looks like Brick cut off there, but yeah, most of these movies I would not go back and rewatch. A lot of them are good popcorn movies. Like you can get some enjoyment out of them, but like a lot of them are like, okay, a little bit confused why we're spending over 300, 400 million dollars, especially when you look back at some of these movies adjusted to inflation and you're like, why are we spending all of this money on movies that people are just going to watch once in theater, forget about, and then never watch again, which is the case with most of these movies like Fast X. Like we have bigger problems in the world than people going to the theater watching Fast and Furious X once and then leaving, never watching it again, and that's what we're prioritizing now. But it's like most of these movies, like I've probably only rewatched one of these movies. I've probably only rewatched like 9 of these movies. I've had no desire to go back and watch most of these, but some of them are fun. Someone hasn't seen them, you want to put them on. Whatever, it's a good time. But like when it's a good time, I don't know. Did you ever watch Jeremy Johns growing up? He's a movie
no.
reviewer on YouTube. He
Oh,
had the
yes. Yeah,
best
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
He had the best movie rating system when like most of these movies are a good time, alcohol required was one of his ratings. He's like good time, no alcohol required. Blu-ray. I would buy this on Blu-ray or awesome tacular. I love this movie or forget in T minus. Like, and honestly, it's the most brilliant way to rate something. It's like, do you need to get fucked up for this movie? Is it a good time with no substance? Is it worth buying on Blu-ray? Awesome tacular. Or when am I gonna forget this? Yep, already forgot. Brilliant rating system, to be honest.
Oh, I like that rating. I think a lot of these movies, you're going to probably need some drugs for, to be honest. I think the next movie we're going to see that's going to be like this is going to be Avengers Doomsday. Apparently, speculation are is that they're going to need at least $2 billion to break even with Avengers Doomsday. And I could tell you part of the reason why. I mean, like, they brought back Robert Downey Jr., they already had a big budget before. I have figures in front of me of what they're paying Robert Downey Jr. next year. But Avengers Doomsday, like $2 billion. There's only been like 5 movies in history that have made $2 billion. Do they make $2 billion, or is this not? Are they not going to get their money back? I feel like they'll make their money back, but it's a lot of money to ask for just to break and just to break even ultimately.
Yeah, I feel like they're gonna make their money back with this movie just because Thunderbolts was received well. I watched it and I was mildly entertained. I thought it was pretty decent for what Marvel has done. I forgot it in about T minus 3 days, and then you also have Fantastic Four coming out this summer, and I feel like that's gonna be the make or break movie for you, where people are gonna buy into this new MCU or not, because it felt like Thunderbolts was the start of a new era where they're like, we need to color grade everything to make it seem dark, and we need to let everyone know we're serious. And then Fantastic Four is going to take place in like the 50s, so it's going to be more of like a old fashioned movie. It's taking place in a different time period. So if people watch Fantastic Four, I'm like, okay, this movie's really good. And then we like the new Spider-Man movie heading into the Avengers. I feel like this movie will definitely break even, but you need to find ways where you don't need to rely on making $2 billion back to be successful. Like, do I think it'll make 3 or 4 billion? Probably, but are you risking a ton of money and gambling on something that's been pretty shaky? It's like betting on the Bulls without Michael Jordan to go out there and win the championship, or betting on the Michael Jordan Wizards to win the NBA Finals. It's like, all right, maybe.
It's a chance. Well, part of that budget, I would say about 10 to 15, maybe 20% of that budget is Robert Downey's salary. He has projected base salary to make $100 million. And then on top of that, he's also going to get incentives for the return of this movie. So he's slated to make $200 million to play Doctor Doom in this movie, which is more than some of the budgets we went over
Oh.
in this last, just with these most expensive movies. The most expensive movie is going to be Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom.
Oh my god. You could fund like 20 small budget horror movies with that amount. And I said before the show, Robert Downey Jr. has to be making at least $100 million to come back, if not 200. And then you break it down like that, it's like there is no way that he's coming back unless one, he's not getting any offers in Hollywood after Doctor Doolittle, or he is just getting over 100 million or at least $200 million. And yeah, he's literally creating generational wealth. A small loan of $200 million. Here you go, Robert Downey Jr. You don't even need to pay it back. Like, all right, I see why he came back as Doctor Doom, and he can literally just go out there and phone it in. Doesn't have to take it seriously either. Like, the guy's older, and guess what? As the kids call it, he secured the bag.
He secured the bag. Dude, he made, how many movies was he in with the Avengers before? He made like what, 10, 15 movies? He made $600 million with them. He's going to make a third of that in one movie with Doctor Doom. And it doesn't matter. He doesn't care how it does. Either way, he's going to make $200 million. He's going
He's
to
going to
walk
be a
away.
billionaire off of
He will be a
Marvel.
just Marvel. Never mind the other movies he's been in. Like, he will be have made $1 billion just with Marvel alone. Like, that's insane. I'm excited for the movie, but I'm not as huge into Marvel as other people. But $200 million, I wouldn't say no either, to be honest.
No, absolutely not. It'd be hard to.
But those are the highest budgeted movies of all time. When I talk shit about all these other movies, they silenced me a couple minutes ago. So we are back. But before we end our show, continuing on the theme of what we've been watching / what we've been listening to, etc. What have you been consuming?
Yeah, we were kind of looking for like a new comfort show to watch that we can just kind of put on. So recently I've been watching a lot of Home Improvement with Tim Allen. I'd never
Okay.
seen the show. It was kind of just Saturday and we're in between things, just hit the gym, waiting to go out at night. I was kind of just working on a few things with the show on my laptop. So I'm like, let me just try Home Improvement out. I've watched Last Man Standing before and I thought it was funny enough. And I kind of understand when they say they don't make shows like they used to. And there's like a couple reasons. And one of them is the kids in the show, like just some of the simple humor, because it's like Home Improvement. He's super into tools. One of the kids, there's three kids if you haven't seen the show. The youngest one ends up breaking one of his tools. And then the two older ones convince him, they're like, oh, you broke one of dad's tools. That's what happened to Peter. They're like, it's like, who's Peter? It's like, it's who dad traded you in for when he broke his tool last time. It's like,
Oh
what?
my god.
And then so when he confronts him about it, he's like, you're not going to trade me in, are you? He's like, where do you get these ideas? It's just like subtle writing. The kids actually feel like kids and they're not super annoying. And then it kind of just feels like a normal family just getting into regular shenanigans where it doesn't take itself super seriously. It's not always trying to send a message. It's just kind of like simple, easy family humor to watch. So we started Saturday and we just finished the first season of it, but I've been enjoying it. So Tim Allen, I mean, he's Buzz Lightyear. He's the Santa Claus, and I feel like overall, like for a guy who went to jail, came out of it on the other side, like he's had a really good career so far.
Yeah. And he's made a bunch of other classics too. Um, so it's Home Improvement. I remember watching it as like it would just be on late at night on Nickelodeon. It would just be just as like playing a bunch of reruns. So I've watched a little bit of Home Improvement. I don't know like the history of it as much, but that's a show that I can watch and just kind of, just enjoy casually. I had actually a similar breakdown, although I just had like a girl over and we were watching something. But I watched the George Lopez show actually. When was the last time you watched the George Lopez show?
Never.
It's well, infamously, like there's a giant meme that's been around the internet for a long time of just like turning on your TV after you fall asleep and it's just the George Lopez theme song because it's like lowrider. It's just like this random bell that comes on during the show. The George Lopez show, I feel like I've always kind of liked George Lopez, so I appreciate it. But the show itself, they have this guy Ernie, who's like his coworker, who's like mildly autistic, and that's just kind of been the highlight of the show. Just his like dumb idiot bullshit that he's been doing constantly. Plus, like as a guy who appreciates Latinas, like both the mom and the daughter are both beautiful Latinas, so obviously I appreciate it. So that's what I've been watching, and then I like finished Star Wars. I watched the last. I think last time I watched it when I was talking to you, I finished like the prequels, and then I just finished the original series. It's a shame what they did to Star Wars because it's kind of a shame. They actually had a story, they ruined it. But George Lopez, I watched that recently, and I actually have been enjoying. I don't have it like on anything, but I was just watching it at a girl's house, and that was a perfect show to just throw on and not pay attention to.
Yeah. And those are kind of, some of the best shows like sitcom. Like, you don't have to pay attention. There's no plot, and you can just pick it up at any time. It's really good background noise, and sometimes you can get a good laugh out of it. So that's definitely good. And then I uh I drove home today, and I was driving home 15-20 minutes later than I should. So I was talking to a person who did not understand the concept of clicking upload file, finding the file on their computer, and then uploading it there. So I had to spend 45 minutes doing that, staying 15 minutes past job I'm going to quit tomorrow. And then on the way home, I end up running into a torrential downpour with hail about this big. Ran into my first
Jesus.
Texas size hail here, and then on my way home, it's like raining down on my car. Everyone pulls over under a bridge. So I'm like, I should do the same thing. And then what that taught me is like, not only should you not stay past your shift for a corporation or a job that doesn't care about you to just be strung along by someone who can't figure out how to upload a file, who needs to go to a branch to figure that shit out. You should also consider hail is sometimes a bad thing. And I feel like some people overestimate people's knowledge of history and the meaning of something like Heil or hail. And I feel like when someone says hail and they grew up in America, especially in the South, driving and it's hailing, you think of something that's coming down, destroying your car. It can mean to wreck something. So I feel like if you come out with a song and it says, yeah, let's hail Hitler, I feel like it means the opposite of what people think it does. I feel like it's like, let's drop hail down on Hitler. It's the subliminal message where people think you're saying hail when actually it's like, no, we should drop hail on Hitler, and rap is all about double entendres. So you have to think about the hail coming down that can break your car, it can break your windows, and it can also break someone who's committed some of the greatest atrocities in history. So sometimes we give people too much credit for understanding the meaning of things when they could simply be thinking of the object hail falling from the sky. I don't know. Especially when it comes to a new song released in the context of it being released by Kanye West. Like, do you think he actually understands the history, or do you think he's actually thinking of golf ball sized hail coming from the sky hitting Hitler? Like, if anything, I feel like he's trying to send the opposite message than people are interpreting it as.
Yeah. Well, he made graduation, so I like your I like your theory a lot more than what I think it is. I mean, that's a lot better of a take. I think just based on his tweets recently, I feel like maybe not, but at the same time, Kanye is a guy who likes to ignite controversy and you know, raining down fucking, puck size ice balls at Hitler, I feel like he would probably have surrendered at that point or maybe surrendered earlier. So I support it. I don't know if you saw it, but he recently rescinded his anti-Semitic isms, and this time it wasn't about Jonah Hill or Adam Sandler. It was just like him just basically saying like, "I was on a phone call with my kids. They said that I'm hating people, so I'm not anti-Semitic anymore." And then he re-released HH clean, and then he made another version of it praising Jesus. So instead of it saying "Hail Hitler," it said "Praise Jesus." If you haven't heard it, I recommend it because he's rescinded his anti-Semitism. I'm like, well, I don't know, man. You've said some pretty fucked up shit the last few months. Like, I don't think you could just Uno reverse that scenario, but I will allow it because he made graduation and Jesus and a bunch of other grades.
I don't think you could. I don't think I could, but could Kanye? People want to love him. That's the problem. Like people want to love
Yes.
this guy so much, and he's literally the guy that says my biggest regret is I won't see myself perform live. But like he makes great music. Like his production is still bombastic. He produced Carnival, which sounds better than most of hip hop that's coming out recently. So it's like people want to love Kanye. So can he sometimes rescind it? Like the thing is when Kanye's trolling, people don't actually take him seriously and they know he's kind of doing it for clicks, even if he is saying messed up stuff right now. But there's also a grift right now with a specific group of people that people think control the world like this. So Kanye was almost, it seemed like just hopping onto a grift just to promote his stuff. And people know that Kanye can be trolling. Like now has a lot of the stuff he said outrageous and is that controversial for sure. And I don't endorse it. But people in the back of their mind, like, is he serious? Does he actually believe it? Like, there's like a certain demographic I feel like that want to like him.
Yeah, I think that looking at it, I mean, he tried to get out of his Adidas deal, and they like froze his bank accounts, and his relationship with Kim K deteriorated, and then he's had a bunch of other shit kind of happen. He doesn't have access to his kids anymore, and a lot of the people that orchestrated those sort of things, and then plus this personal trainer that tried to drug him so that he could never see his kids again, like all of these people were of the same religion. So he probably clumped them all together and was like, okay, fuck these guys. But at the same time, I also know that he's a guy that like is forward thinking, he's a smart guy. So I don't think that he's actually anti Semitic. I just think that he's a guy that whether it's, you know, slavery was a choice, George Bush doesn't care about black people, Beyonce had the best music video of all time. Like every time he's releasing an album, he says some dumb shit that gets the people pissed off, and then he makes an album and everyone forgives him. He's done that uh, every time he's released an album at this point, and I feel like even with Vultures, after he said all this heinous shit, Vultures came out and they're like, well, shit, he made Vultures, he made fucking Carnival, he made Paid, he made all these other songs. People got over it. As soon as he releases Bully, people are gonna give up. They're not gonna care.
Yeah. And, if he kind of went back and has backpedaled on everything he said, there's a chance Bully may he may go back and edit it if he was like, yeah, it's going to be super anti-Semitic just to kind of market it. The funny thing is like Semite doesn't just include the Jews, it also includes the entire Arab world as well. But yeah, I think Kanye maybe he'll go back and re-edit it after this or he'll come out the next day. Just kidding. It's like with someone like that, it's like you just can't take anything he says at face value or take it seriously. You kind of just have to sit back, get your popcorn, and relax at a certain point. And he probably got the call too. Like if you keep going and you keep going this hard, you're gonna get so he probably
Well,
got the call.
when I was in Virginia, I showed them that because I'm like, they all know I'm a Kanye fan historically there, and I showed Eldred that, and I showed Donnie who got married that song, and I mean, the message maybe isn't great, but the song itself is really good. I hate to say it, like it's a really great song. Like the song bangs. It's a banger. Like if it didn't say anti-Semitic shit, it would be the number one song in America. In fact, it's the number one song in Europe right now. In fucking Thailand, in Sweden, in Germany, of all places. Like if they can see behind it the people who actually were murdered, maybe we let it slide. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know like if there's such a thing as like letting it slide or not. It's like, what do you mean we're gonna let it slide? Like we're all gonna go online on Facebook and X and post that we don't like Kanye West. Like, okay, you know what? That gets him a ton of interactions and free promotion. If we're all talking about him all the time, like you want to make someone like Kanye go away and he says a ton of messed up stuff. Stop reacting to it. If you want him to stop doing it, don't react. And guess what? He won't do it anymore because it's not working because what he does is engagement farm. And then whether it's bad news, You hear the old saying, any news is good news because you're getting engagement, you're getting your name out there, and then you're staying relevant. So, like, the fact that people react to him and have to post that they're outraged about him or post, like, I'm so deeply hurt or offended by this, is just free marketing for him. It's not stopping anyone from listening to him. Like, I'm sure he's lost fans over the years, but at the end of the day, it still is promotion. This is someone who's kind of just on the outside looking in who really doesn't have a strong opinion of him one way or the other. I think he's definitely one of the most important people in hip hop as it comes to just producing. I have him number 2, next to Dr. Dre, who I think is the most important producer in hip hop of all time. But after that, you can argue it's Kanye. Maybe not as a
For sure.
rapper, but definitely as a producer.
Definitely influence too, like changing the sound. I would agree with that. Um, yeah, I've been listening to old Kanye. I've been listening to Travis. Um, I found out today. This is something that I was stunned by. But before we recorded the show, you know the song "Who Let the Dogs Out"?
Mm-hmm.
I found out that that song is about ugly bitches at the club. I didn't know that. I thought I was all this time. I'm like, maybe they're just talking about Dobermans and pugs and fucking Rottweilers. No, they're just talking about ugly bitches at the club getting catcalled by fucking horny men. That's the song.
There's a reason why that song was popular in New Hampshire, though.
Yes. Well, yes, where all the dogs are.
Yeah.
That's where all the
New
yeah.
Hampshire, Virginia. I'm sure there's some there.
Yeah,
Ohio.
it's weird. Weird. I haven't heard it in Scottsdale. I don't know what's that about.
Yeah, there's no
And I'm sure you
dogs.
haven't heard it in Austin.
No, definitely not.
No, we're in a good spot for that piece of it. But yeah, that's what I heard. I heard that recently today. I'm like, that's. I mean, that makes the song a little cooler in my mind. But I'm also. That song came out in the fucking '90s. I don't want to hear that shit right now.
Yeah. And then I saw you went to a minor league baseball game yesterday.
Fucking might as well have. I went to a fucking D-backs game. Jesus Christ, that team fucking sucks. So the Pirates. There's two teams that are you can't lose to in 2025. You can't lose to the Rockies, who are 8-43, and yeah, they're bad. And then the Pirates, who are so bad that they're perennial All Star. The guy who won the Cy Young last year, who was in that conversation, Paul Skeens, he's been there for 1 year. He's fairly a rookie. He already wants to leave the Pirates because the Pirates are terrible. You cannot lose to the Pirates or Rockies in 2025. The D-backs were up 6-0 in the eighth inning, and they blew the 6-run inning. They gave up 7 runs and then another 2 runs in the ninth. So they end up losing 9-6. So they blew the lead to the worst team in baseball, not named the Rockies, who are on pace to win 28 games this year. So this basically the actual worst team in baseball outside of the Rockies. They blew a 6-run lead to. So yes, the D-backs are a minor league team.
Yeah. And so was that after the Knicks and Pacers game, or were you watching that during the game, or
That was after the game.
okay. I hope you get paid to go to that.
It was free.
It was free. Okay. And they
Yeah.
lost to the Pirates, so you saw them play the worst team in baseball and they lost.
Yeah. Well, D-backs games are fun though because they're it's a pretty cheap experience overall. It's like $5, and it's a baseball game. Baseball games are dope, so it's worth going if it's like $5. But if it's like $20, it's not worth it.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's not like Red Sox games are like $30, $40 for like a bad game, but like here, every game is like. I mean, a lot of people go home for the summertime, so tickets get really cheap, especially around like July and August time when everyone goes home.
Yeah, I mean, events in general are just expensive. Like, I was just trying to go see like a artist at like it's like a 500 to like 1,000 person club, and it's where I saw Nothing Nowhere last week, and then I went to see Julia Wolf, um, and it was like $90 a ticket on SeatGeek, and
Yeah,
it
it's
was for
insane.
someone who's like, she's like a fairly big artist, but she's not like huge. So you kind of have to like day trade tickets now too. Like I went on SeatGeek, and at one point they're like $70, and then today they're like 44. So still able to scoop them up. But like some of those events, the fact that they buy them up like so quickly, like even um the current person in office right now mentioned in his campaign that it's like it's a little ridiculous how expensive the tickets get, especially for some of these events where people are able to scalp them, just resell it for such a high price. Like Taylor Swift is like, I'm gonna do $10 tickets for people who can't see behind the stage and they won't be able to see the show, and then they're immediately bought up and being resold for $1,000 a ticket.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucked up. They got to fix that Ticketmaster nonsense. I'm trying to see Lincoln Park, and the cheapest ticket's like $150, and they're not worth 100. Like I love Lincoln Park, but they're not worth 150, especially not with Chester Bennington. Like they have a new singer there. It's like I'm not going to spend that much money, even if it is at the Footprint Arena. Like it's not worth the money there.
Yeah, and I heard their new album is good, but at the same time, it's just like a different band at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah, it's just a totally different band. It sounds more like a Hailstorm than like tradition. Lincoln Park is a lot more like hip hop infused rock, and
Yeah.
with her being included in the band, they sound a lot more like a tradition, just like a normal, like ordinary rock band. They're still good, but they're not like what Linkin Park used to be. You know?
Yeah. And we've kind of had like a couple like smaller artists take the mantle. Hollywood Horror off of Hotel Diablo is very Linkin Park inspired. It sounds like him kind of remaking Numb, almost. And then Nothing Nowhere, I feel like has like that good vibe of just combining heavy rock, punk, screamo to he suddenly flips and he starts rapping as good as
Yeah,
most rappers right now. So
yeah. Plus, like that band, I mean, Linkin Park. As much as I love Linkin Park, like they were they peaked in 2005. You know, like they peaked 20 years ago, and even when Chester Bennington was still around, like their peak was early 2000s when like Limp Bizkit, Seven Dust, and like all those other new metal bands were really prominent. They've been able to evolve and they're still relevant, but like $150 a ticket, like what are we doing, dude? It's ridiculous.
yeah, no, even like even some smaller artists are pretty expensive. Like Key Glock was at the Moody Center and it was like $80 a ticket for Key Glock. I'm like, I didn't even know Key Glock was doing stadium tours at this point, but
Yeah, I'm surprised he was, to be honest. I know that Bobby Shmurda from like
yeah,
2015. He was going, I think he was going to New York, which is where he's from, but he couldn't sell. He only sold 10 tickets to the show, and he canceled the tour immediately
really.
because he just got out of jail like I don't know a year ago, and he only sold 10 tickets to his show, so they canceled the show.
Did he like release an album or do anything to promote it, or was he just like, I'm out of jail and need to make money, let's tour and not think it through?
I don't know if he released an album, nobody listened to it, but he just like immediately went on tour to pay his legal fees, I imagine.
Yeah, huh?
Rough.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard of him, but I've never like sought him out before,
Don't.
to be honest.
It's not. Don't. We don't need to. It was like a 2015. It's kind of like Fetty Wap in 2015. It's the same idea. It's just like that's the year you listen to him, or like Takashi 69 in like 2018. Like there's just 1 year to listen to them. And if you don't listen to them in that year, they're not good. That's the reason why they don't stick around. So Bobby Shmurda is that same guy.
If you don't hear Me, Myself, and I, then you just never hear G-Eazy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Talk about
We could.
someone I didn't want to make a comeback, and then someone that Spotify just pushes. I mean, I'm not one of those people who thinks we should gatekeep genres, but especially for hip hop, I feel like there's no room in hip hop for nepo babies, especially someone like G-Eazy who's that boring and has that little to say.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah, I'm not a G-Eazy fan to say the least. But
And neither is the Brickyard there. And we went ahead, we covered the NBA Finals. We went through the top 25 movies adjusted for inflation, what we've been watching, what we've been listening to this week. Any last words for our brickheads before we tune out for the week?
stay brick.